Anthony Albanese. He is in Deakin today in Victoria. He's just started a media conference there, interestingly, not standing side by side with Jacinta Allen.
The early educators who've welcomed us here, but importantly as well, these young Australians getting the best start in life. They were delightful this morning, and I thank them for giving me the honour of getting to read a story with them. It is always uplifting to come into one of these centres and just see young Australians from all sorts of backgrounds just engaging with each other, recognising each other as just young humans and really getting on with each other and learning those social skills as well as picking up the best start in life. We know that more than 90% of human brain development occurs in the first 5 years. So that's why this reading and arithmetic and drawing and engaging is so important, not just as individuals, but also learning that interaction is important. Now, last campaign I was in Victoria, here in Melbourne, where I held up a $1 coin repeatedly, because when asked, I think by someone who might be here, Tom, would I support a pay increase if the Fair Work Commission determined it? I said absolutely. The coalition at that time said that must be a mistake because the sky would fall in. Well, I absolutely meant it. And we've said that not once, not twice, not 3 times, but now for the 4th time we are saying that we support minimum wage and those on award wages, some 3 million Australians, not going backwards. We know that they're doing it tough, and that's why we want to support a real pay increase for those workers in our country. There's a stark contrast at this election between the government that wants people to earn more and keep more of what they earn. We want wage rises and tax cuts. Those opposite us want wages to go down and taxes to go up. They have consistently, in their entire time in office, they never made a single submission calling for wage increases for those Australians on the minimum wage. And bear in mind, that's just $24.10 an hour. Not once in their 10 years, and not once as an opposition had they made a submission supporting that either. At the same time, they've said that they'll go to the next election opposing, not just opposing, our tax cuts, which they did last week in the House of Reps and the Senate. They will introduce legislation to increase taxation for all 14 million Australians. Now, this time last year, they were saying we should have an election to block the tax cuts that we put in place. Now, there is an election. There is a say that the Australian people will have. And we want the Australian people to vote for higher wages and lower taxes, not the coalition's plan of lower wages and higher taxes. It's a pretty simple choice which Australians face. And in particular, I want to single out our early educators. We have, along with aged care workers who've received around about a 28% wage increase. We've legislated for a 15% wage increase for early educators. Some 58,000 of those have received it already, making an enormous difference. We know that for both of those sectors, the people in the care sector who look after our youngest Australians and those who care for our older Australians simply weren't being paid enough. Those feminised industries were undervalued, and we should make sure that we didn't just thank them during the pandemic. We actually recognise that there was a crisis in these areas, that unless we lifted wages, we wouldn't have a workforce to look after these people. I'm going to turn to the Minister, Watt, and then we're happy to take questions.
Well, thanks very much, Prime Minister, and thank you for your support for Australians getting a pay rise. One of the core priorities of the Albanese Labor government has been to get wages moving again, and we are delivering. Before the last election, we saw 5 quarters in a row under the coalition where real wages went backwards, We literally have a mirror image under Labor where we've had 5 quarters in a row leading into this election with real wages growing again. And we want to keep that happening. That's why Labor will put forward a submission to the Fair Work Commission asking them to award an economically sustainable real wage increase for Australia's lowest paid workers. There's about 3 million people who will directly benefit from this, should the Commission agree to our submission, and it includes some of the lowest paid people in our community: the cleaners, the retail workers, the security guards, the early childhood educators, the kind of people who all of us depend upon to run childcare centres like this one to serve us, and it's time that we served them as well and made sure that they had a decent pay rise. Now, we've already seen this morning that members of Peter Dutton's coalition have said that they will not support this position. They will not support a real wage increase for the lowest paid workers in our community, even an economically sustainable one. Now, I guess we shouldn't be surprised about this, because we had 10 years under the coalition of them deliberately keeping wages low. In opposition, they have voted against every single change we've made to workplace laws that have delivered higher wages. And we've already seen Peter Dutton commit that if he's elected, he will remove a whole range of those changes that we've made, which means wage cuts. And today, we learned that they're not going to do anything about pay rises for the lowest paid. They'll stand back and stand aside if a real wage cut is what is handed down. Again, I guess we shouldn't be surprised, because there's a theme emerging through this campaign with Peter Dutton and the coalition, and that theme is cuts. They support cuts to wages. We've seen in the last few days they support cuts to Medicare, cuts to education. And why do they do that? Because they are desperately looking for money to pay for their $600 billion nuclear plan. So Peter Dutton and the coalition are prepared to cut your wages, cut Medicare, cut education, and what we know is that when Peter Dutton cuts, Australians lose. Labor won't let that happen. Labor supports those services, and Labor supports a fair wage increase for the lowest paid in our community.